Welcome to The Bitch in My Brain, the personal growth podcast where we address negative self-talk, build confidence, own our self-worth, and have a good-ass time doing it. Hosted by me, Josie Woods, life coach, entrepreneur, and light chaser. Get ready to embrace self-love and start living in your light. Now let's get after it. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Bitch in My Brain podcast. My name is Josie. It is so good to be with you this week. I hope 2026 has started off, right and good, and you guys are feeling some momentum and excitement. I know I am. But I really want to kind of dive straight into this episode because it's been on the top of my mind. It's something that I have been working with and kind of dissecting this past week. And I feel like it's a topic that is incredibly relevant to women. And it is the act of giving. And the reason why it's so kind of subconscious or automatic for women is we're naturally kind of people pleasers, we're caretakers, and that, comes from society and how we grew up, and, we're also conflict avoiders. So it's really easy for us to kind of slip into the giving mode, which I am not saying giving is bad in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of joy, there's a lot of happiness, there's just a lot of feel-good feelings around giving. However, there is also this other side of giving, and this side of giving isn't really acknowledged. And I think it's one of those where it's kind of frowned upon because you should be generous, you should be giving. So how is there this other kind of side to it? And the best way I can kind of outline it is, the act of giving is positive, is, in service of those joyful feelings. And then the flip side is when that act of giving then becomes sabotaging and then has a negative impact on our lives. And yeah, it can be kind of confusing because it's like you love to, gift and give, but what I've experienced this past week has been on the other side of it, where my giving actually, sabotaged me a little bit. And so really where all this comes from is earlier this week, I was at the grocery store. I finished up my shopping and I was headed back out into the parking lot to put my groceries away. And as I was walking to my car, I had a woman approach me and, she looked kind of distressed. She had been crying. She just looked like a woman in need of help. And so she asked me, she said, "Do you have any money so that I can fill up my gas tank?" And I didn't have any cash on me. So I had to tell her, no, unfortunately I don't, which that, killed me inside. But I put my groceries away. She walked away and I could still kind of hear her asking other people. And as she was doing that, I kept hearing people say no and no and no. And like I said, it was breaking my heart. And so when I got in the car, I realized that I had $1. And so I was like, you know what? I'll just go over there, give it to her. It's not much, but at least it's something. And so I walk over to her car and she's sitting in the front seat and she's crying. And I say, "Hey, I only have this $1, but, I want it to go to you." And she was like, "Thank you, but, I'm needing to fill up my gas tank because I need to get to Cheyenne because I put my partner in jail last night for abuse and his parents bailed him out. So I need to, he's going to come after me." And honestly, the way she was saying it, how she was saying it, I really could tell the genuine need she had. Like it didn't feel like she was, trying to fake me out or anything like that. And so
once she told me that, I said, because I was at King Soopers, so there's a gas station right next door. And I said, why don't you go ahead and meet me over at the gas station and I can, help you out. And so I meet her over there. And of course she's in this, big old red truck. And I, walk over to the pump and, I put my card in and all of that. And it starts pumping. And I'm continuing to talk with her. And she's, she's showing me how he punched her in the face and she isn't able to put her teeth in. And just, she was telling me about her situation. And in my head, in my heart, I'm just like, I need to get her away from this guy. I need to make sure that she gets to Cheyenne so she is 100% safe. And so as the car's kind of filling up, she's like, hey, just tell me when to stop. Just tell me when to stop. And I was like, you know what? Fill up your tank. Like, I want you to get to Cheyenne. It's a guarantee that you're going to get to Cheyenne. So fill it up. Not really considering that she had a big old truck. I'm like, we fill up our Tiguan and it's like $30, but the truck was different. And once it was filled up, we exchanged, some goodbyes, and her name was Jill. She really was, very nice woman. And, as I'm leaving the gas station, I'm riding this high and I feel so good. And like, I can just feel the joy and happiness in my body. And, I appreciated myself for helping someone else and doing something kind. Because I love that. Naturally, I love helping others. So I'm feeling, fantastic driving back. I get home, I'm telling Sam, I was like, look at this awesome thing I did. And I was so proud of myself. However, I wasn't necessarily excited about the price of the gas and the price of the help that I gave her. But I was still kind of riding that high. And then I want to say about like 2 hours later, I had this wave of guilt come in because I realized that, the $60 that I filled her tank with is $60 that I need right now, and I know that's, $60 isn't crazy, but it is, it is a part of Sam and I's grocery budget, and it does go towards, bills and all of that. So I was feeling this just guilt and kind of being like, God, Josie, like what? It's kind of like you're such an idiot. Like, why are you sabotaging yourself to help, others? And it brought up a really good kind of thought-provoking question of like, why did I have to go above and beyond for her? And what I discovered is, when I asked that question to myself, my inner hero stepped up. And, my inner firefighter and all of the parts of me that desperately want to save, other people or help other people. So I opened up kind of the conversation with my hero, just kind of sitting with it, figuring out kind of where this is coming from and why this part of me needs to be so active in those situations. And what it comes from is I didn't have anyone to save or protect me growing up. I never had someone who would come and rescue me. I was always rescuing myself. I was always having to figure out things on my own. Like there was no one there for me. And that made me overcompensate in a way where I feel as though I have to show up completely. I have to give it my all. I have to show up for others and help others to my full capability. And because of that, I have put myself in tough positions. And it's not just this one, financially. I've also had to do that with friends, or did that with friends, and their life's problems and everything. And I love being a support system. I love that all my friends can come to me, and honestly, I'm like the keeper of the biggest secrets. Like, they tell me things they feel they can't tell other people. And I do wear that with a badge of honor. I do wear that with some pride, and it feels good. But now I'm looking back at how much that sabotages me, and how much of an impact it has on, my daily life when I'm helping these situations. I had a friend come to me with some pretty big relationship problems, and there were a lot of details. There were a lot of, there was drama, and it was such an intense situation, and I was one of the only people who knew the full extent of the story. And so I showed up for her as much as I could, texting her every day, all day long, getting on the phone to help her process things. Like, I made myself available 24/7, 25/8, honestly. But what happened was, I then began to take on that responsibility for their happiness, their joy, and it was sucking the life out of me, because I felt like with every conversation, I was getting sucked further and further into the drama, and it started to not feel good. The way I was showing up was not coming from my highest self, because I didn't have anything more to give. I was pouring from an empty cup. And when we do that, that is the sabotage, because you're truly not able to be the best version of yourself, to be in true joy and happiness when you have an empty cup. And yeah, like I said, you can't give anymore. When I realized this about myself, when I realized that, my hero was trying to put on their oxygen mask first, I realized that what I really need right now, and in this moment, and this, lesson, is boundaries. I need boundaries around my hero, around this rescuer part of me. And that was kind of a strange realization, because like I said, at the beginning, giving feels good. Why would I want to, kind of set a few parameters around how, I give and show up? But I know that when I'm able to really soak that in, this is a lesson that I believe can be truly transformative for, honestly, the rest of my life. And so when I was thinking back to those two situations I was in recently, where, I was overgiving, I would ask myself, what actually am I available for? What can I actually do that feels good, that will feel clean? Because that's what we want. We want a clean exchange when we're giving. We want to be able to, give from a genuine, kind of selfless place that feels good for us and also feels good for them. And so, like I said, when I think back to those experiences, specifically, like, let's do the gas station, what I would have been available for would have been like 15, 20 bucks. I could have walked away from that situation feeling good, feeling clean, because that was how I could show up in that situation. I don't have a lot of money, but here's what I can do. And I know that if I would have done it that way, because I also will note, she gave me the opportunity to tell her when to stop pumping. She said, tell me when to stop. And that's when I responded with, fill it up, my, inner heroes, like all the way to the top. And so looking back, not even looking back, looking forward, I can look at that situation. If that does happen, again, or I do get put in a position where I want to help, I can, check in with myself first. What am I available for? Do I have money I can give? Or, for my friend's situation, do I have the time to give? Okay, this has pulled me away from some things that I want to be doing. So, maybe I'm available for just a, FaceTime at the end of the day. I'm not having to text, back immediately. So once I'm able to kind of build in that pause and get the clarity that I need for it to feel good, I guarantee that joy and happiness. I can keep that feeling that I had in the car of loving to help someone, and especially loving to help a woman get to a safe space. And I think that, that's a very transformative thing that I'm going to really implement in my life, because it's going to save me time. It's going to save me energy. It's going to save me, my mental space. And all those things are gifts. And those are gifts that we can give to ourselves, because we deserve to to gift ourselves things just as much as we believe we need to gift others things. And that's not, just materialistic or, items based, but just, in general. And so, I was so kind of stoked around that was some clarity I got. And so feeling really good about that. And then kind of the next phase into this, as I processed it, was the importance of giving from a place of true generosity. And I kind of touched on that obviously earlier in the episode. But another thing that has really transformed the way I have helped others is about, I want to say, a year or two ago. I started this practice of every week I would fill a little baggie in the car with a few, $1 bills and, a five for a family. But what I would do is I allocated that money to giving to homeless people on the side of the road. And my favorite part about this practice is I told myself that I will not judge who I give this money to. Doesn't matter how you look, if you look like a sketch ball or if you look, like an average Joe, I will still give you $1 no matter what. Because I also truly believe that who am I to judge who's worthy of my dollar and who's not? And this is actually a conversation that I had with some of the people that I worked at the stand. And socially, I would say we didn't necessarily align with the same values and social values. And so when I brought up this practice that I do, which makes me excited, I got some mixed reactions. And I don't want to say mixed because it wasn't. It was like 3v1 in the trailer. And their kind of response to me giving like that was, well, you're enabling the drug problem. You're enabling the homeless, population. And you shouldn't be doing that because what if they go spend it on drugs? They were so concerned about whether or not that person is, going to spend my gift or my money in the way that they deem is correct. And that right there is subjective. There's a spectrum of what people believe is correct and what people believe they should do. And when we buy into that, we're actually giving from a place of non-generosity, if that makes sense. Because if we care what people do with a gift we've been given, that isn't a genuine act. That isn't really being selfless. You're putting expectations or standards on this other person who's just looking for a little bit of help. And I received a letter in the mail the other day from a foundation I do donate to. It is a great foundation. I can link it in the show notes. But I was given a letter, and it is from an expert from a Dharma talk about being a real human being. And this is by Dr. Larry Ward. And so what it talks about, and I'm going to kind of read it because I don't want to get confused. So it starts with, our education system, our economics, or political process don't give us the time to create the environment for us to train ourselves in being a real human being. The first one of these practices is generosity. And first, it means learning to give physical things we have without reluctance. Sharing. Basic kindergarten kind of issues. I have a cookie, you don't have one. What do we do now? Generosity. We have to train ourselves. And even though the impulse is deep inside of us to share and to give, we are so quickly trained out of it by our society, by our culture. And this is not just our culture, it's every culture. It's don't do that. Don't give them a cookie. Why? Because they may come back tomorrow for another one. We have tremendous rationales for cutting off and killing our true human being. And generosity is giving without apprehension, giving without fear. And this is my favorite part. There's a great story about the Buddha's generosity. The Buddha and his cousin Ananda were out for a stroll, and a man came up, bowed, and said, "Dear sage, my mother has a medical emergency, and in order for her to be healed, she needs another eye." So the Buddha took his eye out and gave it to the man. The man took the eye from the Buddha, threw it in the dust, and stomped on it. And while he was stomping on it, Ananda said, "Hey, wait a minute." But the Buddha said, "Ananda, the gift has already been given." The practice of generosity is the practice of giving. For most of us, if people don't do what we want with our gift, we are upset. That is the practice of non-generosity. When a gift has been given, it is no longer yours, and it is no longer mine. And when we think like this, we train ourselves so well that eventually our generosity becomes like the Buddha's. So I loved that. I swear the universe sent me it, right when I needed to read it, right when I could actually, absorb and channel really what that message is. So that kind of gives you an overview of, what I've been going through as far as what I've been processing and all the things that have been coming up, and to really have that clarity around my hero, and then knowing how to handle my hero, talk to them and say, hey, before we react, before we jump in, before we put their oxygen mask on first, what can we do for ourselves? What are we available for? And I'm so excited to, put this into practice. And I'm going to be, aware when those moments pop up. And who knows, my hero might win sometimes, but, I'm there to keep practicing, to keep learning from those experiences. So I too can be like the Buddha and give from a place of generosity, true, genuine generosity. And I wish that for you as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I love spending time with you guys, and I'm very excited to see you next time. That was an interesting way to do it, but here we go. This is the usual one. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. There we go.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this episode spoke to you, and I can't wait to continue to share so much more. If you're feeling called, please subscribe and leave a review so together we can reach even more women who deserve to live their best life. And you can follow me on social at The Bitch in My Brain as I share my journey and life in real time. I can't wait to see you bitches next week. Take care.